When you talk about first-party game development, Sony has really been at the forefront this generation. I would even put them ahead of a Nintendo, in that Sony has just created so many compelling first-party experiences this generation, and there are more to come. And of course, looking at 2019 and beyond, there are the games that all of you guys know about and are very excited for. I point to you a Days Gone, a Last of Us Part 2, a Ghost of Tsushima, Dreams. Those games have been highlighted heavily by the Western market, and I imagine that the majority of you are very excited for those games, and how could I forget to mention Death Stranding? Those games are all gonna be massive, but Sony has been quietly working behind the scenes, specifically with China, in creating some very compelling and massive games coming from China, and yearly, they've also been showcasing some of the games coming out of China as a part of their China Hero project. Now, some of you guys might be a little bit unfamiliar with China Hero, and Daniel Ahmed, a video games industry analyst, has a great post on that. That dates all the way back to 2016, but I do want to take a look at that in a little bit so you guys have an idea of what the China Hero project is. And on March 7th, PlayStation China is holding yet another conference to promote games and announce launch dates for certain games a part of this project. Some of these games look absolutely amazing, and in a little bit I'll take you through some of those games and why you should be excited, because again, there's been so much promotional muscle put towards games like Death Stranding, games like Last of Us Part 2, Ghost of Tsushima, Death Stranding. I can go on and on about how great those games look. However, these games look great too, and they are going to add a lot of depth to the PlayStation 4's ever-evolving library. So they deserve to be highlighted as well, but first let's talk about the China Hero project, and again, Daniel Ahmed has a great post on that, and I'll leave a link to it down below if you guys want an even more in-depth look and have a look for it yourself. Again, this post is dated back to 2016 when the initiative was launched, but the mission of this project is to develop a global standard blockbuster titles through the PlayStation platform, contribute to the Chinese gaming industry's growth and development, and release these games worldwide to spread influence. That is the big deal. These games are not going to be exclusive to China. The ultimate goal is to bring these games to a worldwide scale, and when you look at these games with how much money is being poured into some of these titles, you could imagine that they're not just going to be confined into a Chinese release and not be localized to other areas. Of course, they're going to be coming to the West as well. Now, what's Sony's role in all of this? Well, the China Hero project primarily targets startup ventures and Chinese domestic enterprises. Sony took registrations, and the registration requires companies to already have a project name, game idea, synopsis, and research that shows how they can complete the project. Companies that were successful in having their project approved will be able to take full advantage of support from Sony, which includes PlayStation 4 and PSVR dev kits, technical support, special license and service packages, and full training and support. The post itself also goes in depth on funding and what the ultimate goal of the project is, so again, I'll leave a link to that in the description box down below, but a very interesting read and really gives you an idea of what Sony is planning for the future and the global scale that they want to take the PlayStation brand. Of course, it's China. Every business is trying to break into China. You just look at the majority of businesses. China is something so many are trying to break into, and if you can, obviously the potential revenue and resources could be limitless. But for us, and I know you guys, you specifically care about the game, so let's talk about some of the games, because these games look just as good as some of the PlayStation 4 exclusives you're already excited for, and with some of these games, maybe you'll be even more excited for them. And I point to you one that a lot of you guys might already know about, but if you don't, put Lost Soul aside on your radar, because this game looks incredible. We were hearing about this game a couple of years ago, but it looked like development was gonna be pretty rough, but then funding came along, a studio came along, and this game is making some legitimate progress. I imagine that we're at the very least gonna see more gameplay of this title. Maybe we'll finally get a release date as well, because this game has been in development for a very long time, and right away when you look at this game, it's hard not to be compelled. Look at those stylish visuals, look at that fast-paced action gameplay that harkens back to, say, a Platinum Games title or a Devil May Cry game, and the aesthetic and presentation style, man, that main character looks a little bit like Noctis. It goes to show the main developer behind the game is definitely a fan of Final Fantasy and takes some influence from that, but the game looks to have its own intricate story, a variety of different characters, and it does tout a lot of specific facts. Exploration in the refined open world of fantasy, smooth and challenging combat, stylish and graceful visual performance. Lost Soul Aside is touted as an action game with fantasy art style, something like combining Final Fantasy with Ninja Gaiden. This is also a game that a lot of people have already gotten a chance to play, and the usual reception is it's a fast-paced game, it's a rewarding game, and it's one that's very easy to sell to a Western market. I mean, the most casual of gamers can look at Lost Soul Aside and instantly be like, okay, that's a game that I would spend my money on, that's a game that I would spend countless hours on, and that's a game I would probably enjoy. And a big reason why it's coming to fruition is because of this initiative, and hopefully we hear more about the game. Could you imagine if this was another 2019 release? I don't know if that'll necessarily be the case. Who knows if this will end up being a PS5 game, but it does seem like it's coming further and further along, and I do hope we hear more about it at the conference. One of the early games that was announced a part of this project is Project Boundary. This is a space sci-fi first-person shooter for PlayStation 4 and PlayStation VR. Details about the game are still relatively scarce, but the gameplay that we have seen for it, man, looking at this game, just like Lost Soul aside, this holds right up there with AAA Western releases. If you put this next to any of the AAA games that you're excited for, you look at Project Boundary and you're like, man, that game from a technical standpoint, it's a very, very impressive game, and I want to hear more about it. I want to see how that game's coming along. It was noted as a PlayStation 4 and PlayStation VR game. Not sure if that means it'll be VR exclusive or if it'll have components of both. That's something we'll keep you guys posted on, but another very interesting game as a part of this project. Another pretty cool game that we saw some of last year is Pervaded. It's a big budget military game. It's got great visuals. It looks a little bit mature, but at the same time, when you look at the visuals, it also has some sort of zany elements to it. But another game, just like Project Boundary, just like Lost Soul aside, initial footage of it definitely gives you that big budget feel, so it's cool to see games like that come out of China. Here's one that necessarily doesn't have that big budget feel, but also looks very interesting in its own right, and that is Hardcore Mecha. Again, comparing it to the last three games I just mentioned in LSA, Project Boundary, and Pervader, not quite as much of a technical milestone, but a very stylish game with a lot of flair, and I see a lot of potential right away. There looks to be a variety of different mechas for you to control, and I imagine that each of them will play differently, have different abilities, things like that. Mecha games these days are few and far between. Yes, we did get Zone of the Enders, Second Runner Mars last year, but that was just a remaster. We can get quality mecha games consistently, even if they are of a different style. Hey, that's something I'll be all over as a fan of mecha. Kill X is another pretty interesting PlayStation VR title. We saw a gameplay demo of this, and this is a very eerie horror game on PlayStation VR. Now, PlayStation VR and horror seems to be a match made in heaven. We see a lot of horror games come to PSVR, and Resident Evil 7 showcase that horror can be very, very compelling on PSVR. Kill X is a game that looks to raise the bar on that even more. A pretty interesting title for you PlayStation VR owners. Probably a game you don't know about, but one to definitely keep on your radar. How about this? This is a game that we saw back in 2017, and that is Monkey King Hero is Back. Sony is adapting Monkey King Hero is Back exclusively for the PlayStation 4. That was announced a couple of years ago at Sony's China Joy 2017 press conference. We didn't see a lot of footage of that, but there is a pretty cool announcement trailer that goes over some of the development elements of the title. So another interesting game, and also a game that's already been released on PC, but as a part of this initiative, they're looking to bring to the PlayStation 4 as well, and that's Incredible Manny. This game has such an awesome art style. Unfortunately, even with a PC release, didn't gain much traction, only has a total of 20 Steam reviews, and after the course of 4 or so months, you would hope for a little bit better, but a very cool indie adventure puzzle platformer, and the reviews that are there are very, very positive. 95% of the Steam reviews have been positive, so that's something to note as well. Again, comparatively speaking to some of those other games, not as big budget, but you want games with a little bit of a diversity. Not every game can be a Lost Soul aside or a Project Boundary. It's absolutely fine to have some more charming games like an Incredible Mandy in there as well, or a Hardcore Mecha, and ultimately I imagine the goal of this initiative would to be able to create that diversity that we see in Western gaming as well. Not every game is a big budget title like a Ghost of Tsushima. We have smaller indie games, we have more intricately designed games. It's all about variety, and just after a couple of years, we're already seeing that come out of China. So yes, this is something not a lot of people are going to be talking about. Everybody's looking ahead to things like the PlayStation 5, things like E3. There's so much to talk about in the gaming world today, but this is one thing to keep your eyes on. Again, the conference will be held on March 7th, and I imagine that we're going to see some gameplay of some very exciting titles, and it was also said that launch dates for specific games will be announced as well. What launch dates are we going to get? I hope for a Lost Soul aside release date. Not holding my breath too hard for that, but that would be awesome to see, as that's a game I've been following for quite a while, and a game that we'll be covering ahead of its release for sure. I wanted to get you guys up to speed on all of this, and we'll have a bunch of links in the description box down below that highlight some games. You guys can see some footage. You guys can check out Daniel Ahmed's article, because that was a very well written article that'll get you up to speed on everything to know. That's gonna conclude this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to sound off with all of your thoughts in the comments section down below. Thank you for watching, and goodbye. Hey guys, we hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to hit the subscribe button, and if you're already subscribed, do us a favor and hit the bell icon. This way you'll be notified whenever we post a new video. That's the best way to keep up with all of our uploads, and we usually try to upload 2 videos a day. And with the bell icon hit, you'll be notified whenever we do upload a video. As always, thanks for watching.